I died on a Tuesday. The water was cold, colder than I expected. My lungs burned as I sank, the weight of the stones in my pockets dragging me down into the lake's black mouth. Above me, through the fractured surface, I saw her face, Melissa's face, twisted in something between triumph and disgust. Her lips moved. I couldn't hear the words anymore, but I didn't need to. I'd heard them enough times. You were always in my way. Then nothing. Then everything. I woke up to the smell of jasmine tea and my mother's rose perfume. My fingers clutched silk sheets, expensive, cream-colored, the kind I'd sold after the funeral to pay Melissa's emergency credit card bills. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew these sheets. I knew this room. The morning light slanted through the gauze curtains the exact same way it had on the day I'd turned 23, 3 years before I died. I sat up. My hands were smooth. No calluses from the restaurant job I'd taken after Father's company collapsed. No scar on my palm from the night Melissa shoved me into the glass coffee table and told the hospital I'd been drunk. My phone, the old model I'd thrown away 2 years into my nightmare, sat on the nightstand, charging. The date glowed on the screen. March 14th. 3 years before the lake. I should have cried. I should have screamed. Instead, I laughed a single, sharp sound that tasted like iron. The door opened. Melissa stood there in a silk robe, her hair perfect even at 7 in the morning, holding a mug of coffee. She looked so young, so innocent, the same wide brown eyes that had watched me drown. "You're awake?" she said, her voice honey-sweet. "I made coffee. Thought we could talk about your engagement party tonight?" Engagement party. The words hit me like a fist. Tonight. The night I'd introduced her to him. To Marcus. Marcus Chen. 6'2", sharp jawline. Custom suits that smelled like sandalwood. And something darker. Something I'd been too in love to recognize as danger. He'd proposed to me on a yacht. With a 10-carat diamond and promises that tasted like champagne. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. I didn't know then that the yacht was bought with drug money, that the diamond was payment from a cartel, that Marcus Chen wasn't a tech investor. He was the silent hand behind half the organized crime in the city, and the FBI had been building a case against him for 5 years. I didn't know that Melissa would see him, want him, and spend the next 3 years systematically destroying my life to take him. That she'd whisper poison into Father's ears, forge documents to make me look like I'd embezzled from the family company, isolate me from every friend until I had nothing left but Marcus, who, by then, had tired of me anyway. I didn't know that the night I finally discovered the truth about his business, Melissa would be there in his penthouse, wearing my engagement ring, laughing as he gave the order. But now I knew. Now I knew everything. I looked at Melissa, standing in my doorway, her smile so perfectly rehearsed, and I felt nothing. No anger, no betrayal. Just a cold, clear certainty. "Coffee sounds great," I said. My voice came out steady, calm. I watched her blink, surprised in the old timeline. I'd been gushing about the party, about Marcus, about the dress I'd bought. "Actually, Mel, I need your advice about something." Her eyes sharpened with interest. "Of course. What is it?" I let the pause stretch, counting my heartbeats. 3, 4, 5. "I'm thinking of breaking up with Marcus." The mug trembled in her hand. Just slightly. Just enough. "What?" She set the coffee down on my dresser, crossing the room to sit on my bed. Her perfume roses and vanilla made my stomach turn. I'd smelled it on Marcus's collar the night I found them together. "Sweetie, what are you talking about? You two are perfect together. The party's tonight. Everyone's coming. I know." I picked at the silk sheets, playing the part of the uncertain girl I'd been. "It's just, something feels off. He's so secretive about his work. He gets these phone calls at strange hours and just leaves. Last week, I saw him meeting with these men in suits at that warehouse by the docks. When I asked him about it, he said it was a business deal. But I let my voice trail off, shaking my head. Maybe I'm being paranoid. I wasn't being paranoid. I was chumming the water. Melissa's hand covered mine. Her skin was cold. You're not paranoid. You're smart. If something feels wrong, trust your gut. Her thumb stroked my knuckles in a gesture that might have looked sisterly to anyone who didn't know her. But breaking up right before the party? That's so public, so messy. You're right. I sighed, pulling my hand away to rub my face. I just don't know if I can marry someone I don't fully trust. Maybe I need some space to think. Space is good, she said quickly. Too quickly. You know what? Why don't I talk to him? Feel him out. See if I can figure out what's going on. Sister to, well, future brother-in-law. She laughed, light and airy. I'm good at reading people. Yes. Yes, she was. Would you? I looked at her with wide, grateful eyes. That would mean so much, Mel. I just need to know if I'm crazy or if there's really something wrong. Of course. She squeezed my shoulder, standing. That's what sisters are for. Now, get dressed. You need to look stunning tonight, even if you're having doubts. Show him what he'd be losing. She left, taking her rose perfume with her. I sat in the silence, listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I stood and walked to the window. The garden below was in full spring bloom. Azaleas, jasmine, the cherry tree Father had planted when I was born. In 2 years, he'd be dead from a stress-induced heart attack. Triggered by the embezzlement scandal Melissa would fabricate, the house would be sold to pay my debts. The garden would be paved over for a parking lot. But that was the old timeline. I pressed my palm against the cool glass and smiled. The engagement party was held at the Grandview Hotel in the Crystal Ballroom, with its Art Deco chandeliers and marble floors that clicked under high heels like a countdown. I wore the dress I'd worn before, midnight blue silk that cost 3 months of my current salary, and the diamond on my finger caught the light like a warning. Marcus found me by the champagne tower. He always did. He moved through crowds like a shark through water, inevitable and predatory. The sandalwood cologne hit me first, then his hand on my lower back, possessive and warm. There you are, he murmured against my ear. I've been looking for you. In my first life, those words had made me feel wanted. Now I heard them for what they were, a keeper checking on his possession. I turned and looked up at him. He was beautiful, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that crinkled when he smiled, a mouth that knew exactly how to lie. He'd kissed me with that mouth, while his men loaded heroin into shipping containers. He'd told me he loved me while laundering money through my father's company. He'd held my face gently and called me his angel the day before he ordered my death. Hi, I said softly. This is overwhelming. I know, but you're doing great. His thumb stroked my spine. Everyone loves you. My business partners are impressed. Business partners. I glanced past him, to the men in expensive suits clustered by the bar. I recognized them now, the Kozlov brothers, who ran the Port Authority and looked the other way for the right price. Senator Huang, who'd been indicted for corruption 6 months after my death. David Tran, whose restaurant chain was a front for a protection racket. In my first life, I'd thought they were venture capitalists. Marcus, I said, letting a tremor enter my voice. Can we talk? Somewhere private? His expression flickered concern, calculation, something harder underneath. Of course. Terrace? The terrace was empty, cold with early spring wind. The city sprawled below us, lights glittering like broken glass. Marcus shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. The sandalwood smell wrapped around me like a threat. What's wrong? He asked. I took a breath. Let it out slowly. I don't think I can do this. Silence. A car horn blared somewhere far below. Do what? His voice was very calm. This. Us. The wedding. I twisted the ring on my finger. I care about you so much, Marcus. But I feel like I don't really know you. Your work, your friends, the way you disappear for days, I just don't think I'm ready for this kind of life. What kind of life? Each word was precise. Controlled. The fancy parties. The important people. I'm just a girl from a textile family. I like quiet dinners and gardening, and I let my voice break. I think I need someone simpler. Someone who can be home for dinner. Someone whose business I understand. I watched him process this. Watched the micro expressions flash across his face. Anger, relief, suspicion, and finally, calculation. He was already thinking about how to spin this, how to end it cleanly. I was becoming a liability, asking too many questions, and liabilities were dangerous in his world. But he couldn't just let me go. Not yet. Not until he knew I wouldn't talk. If that's how you feel, he said slowly, I won't force you. But let's not make any rash decisions tonight. Sleep on it. We'll talk in a few days. Okay. I slipped the ring off my finger. It felt like removing a shackle. But you should take this back. For now, he stared at the diamond in my palm. For a moment, I saw something cold and final in his eyes. The same look he'd had when he gave the order at the lake. Then he smiled, taking the ring. If you're sure, I am. I left him on the terrace and walked back into the ballroom. The champagne tower glittered. The chandeliers hummed. And there, by the dessert table, Melissa stood watching me with her calculating eyes. I crossed to her, letting my shoulders slump, my eyes glisten. I did it, I whispered. I ended it. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh, honey, are you okay? I will be. I took a shaky breath. You were right. I couldn't marry someone I don't trust. Better now than later, right? Right. She hugged me, and I felt her heart racing against my chest. You're so brave. This is the right choice. Over her shoulder, I saw Marcus watching us from the terrace doorway. Our eyes met. He raised his glass in a small, sardonic salute. I looked away first. The next 3 weeks were a performance. I played the heartbroken ex-fiancé perfectly. I stayed in my room, ordered sad movies, let Melissa bring me ice cream and sympathy. I watched her through lowered lashes as she comforted me while texting someone. Marcus, I knew with increasing frequency. She started dressing differently. More makeup, tighter dresses. The rose perfume got heavier, cloying. I ran into Marcus today, she said casually one afternoon, perched on my bed while I pretended to read. At that coffee shop you liked. He asked about you. What did you say? That you were doing better? Focusing on yourself. She examined her nails, fresh manicure, red as blood. He seemed lonely. I felt bad for him. I bet she did. That's nice of you, I said. To check on him. Well, he's still family adjacent, right? And he's not a bad guy. Just maybe not the right guy for you. She paused. He asked if I wanted to get dinner sometime. To talk about you, I think? Make sure you're really okay. There it was. The hook. Baited and ready. I looked up from my book. Let confusion cross my face. Dinner? With you? Just as friends. He's worried about you, and I think he needs closure. She tilted her head, the picture of innocence. Would that be weird? I can say no if it makes you uncomfortable. In my first life, I'd said yes. I'd been so naive, so trusting. I'd even encouraged it, thinking Melissa could help Marcus understand my decision. I'd handed her the knife and shown her where to stab. No, it's fine, I said now, returning to my book. You're right. He probably needs closure. You're good at that stuff, talking to people. Go ahead. Her smile was radiant. You're the best sister ever. I'll make sure he understands it's really over. Oh, I was sure she would. I waited 2 days. Then I went to Father's study. He sat behind his mahogany desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, surrounded by ledgers from the textile company. He looked tired. In my first life, this was when the stress had started, when Melissa's forged documents began appearing, when accounts started showing discrepancies that pointed to me. Father, I said from the doorway, do you have a minute? He looked up, and his face softened. "Always, darling. Come in." I sat in the leather chair across from him, the one I'd sat in as a child when he taught me about business. The leather smelled like old books and pipe tobacco he'd quit smoking years ago, but the scent lingered. "I need to tell you something," I said, "and I need you to trust me." His eyebrows rose. "That sounds serious." "It is." I leaned forward. "I need you to audit all the company accounts, every single one, and I need you to change all the passwords and access codes. Don't tell anyone you're doing it, not even Melissa or Diane." Diane. Melissa's mother. My stepmother. The woman who'd married my father 2 years after my mother's death and spent the next decade teaching her daughter that what was mine should be hers. Father's expression shifted to concern. "What's this about? Did something happen?" "I just have a feeling," I said carefully. "Call it intuition, but I think someone might try to access the accounts improperly. I don't have proof yet. I need you to protect yourself. Please." He studied me for a long moment. In my first life, I'd never had this conversation. The forgeries had gone unnoticed until it was too late, until the damage was done, and I was blamed. "Your instincts have always been good," he said finally. "Like your mother's. If you're worried, I'll look into it. Thank you." I stood. "And father?" "Keep records of who accesses what. Timestamps, everything." "Now you're really worrying me." "Good," I said. "Be worried. Be careful." I left him there, surrounded by his ledgers, and felt the first piece of my new timeline click into place. Melissa announced she was dating Marcus exactly 4 weeks after my engagement ended. She came to my room with flowers, peonies, my favorites, which would have been touching if I didn't know she was using them as a shield, and sat on my bed with her rehearsed expression of guilt and hope. "I need to tell you something," she said. "And I hope you won't hate me." I set down the gardening book I'd been reading. "What's wrong?" "Marcus and we've been spending time together. A lot of time. And something happened." She twisted her hands together. "We didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. We have this connection, this chemistry. And I know it's so soon after you two broke up, and I feel terrible, but I think I'm falling in love with him." I let the silence stretch, let her squirm. Her eyes darted to my face, searching for anger, for tears, for anything she could use. "Are you serious?" I asked, finally. I know how it sounds. I know it's fast. But when you know, right? She reached for my hand. I let her take it. Her palm was damp with nervous sweat. "He makes me feel alive. Like I'm the only person in the world. And he said he never felt this way with anyone else. That what you two had was nice, but this is different. This is real. Real." The word almost made me laugh. Marcus didn't do real. Marcus did useful. And right now, Melissa was very useful, a new face to legitimize his public image, a connection to my father's company that he could exploit, a naive girl who wouldn't ask questions about the warehouses and the late-night calls. She was perfect for him, and he was perfect for her. "Does he treat you well?" I asked softly. She blinked, surprised. "What? Does he treat you well? Make you happy?" Yes, he does. He's amazing." Her grip on my hand tightened. "So you're not mad?" I pulled my hand away gently. "Mel, I broke up with him. I'm not going to be angry that he's moving on. If you two have something real, then I'm happy for you." I paused, let my voice drop. "Just be careful, okay?" I had my reasons for ending it. "What reasons?" She leaned forward, hungry for information she could use. "Just feelings, instincts." I shrugged. "But maybe I was wrong. Maybe you two are better suited. You like the fancy lifestyle, the parties, the excitement. I never did." I could see her processing this, weighing it, deciding I was just jealous, just bitter, just trying to ruin her happiness with vague warnings. "I think you were wrong," she said, standing. "Marcus is wonderful. You'll see." Once you get to know the real him, oh, I knew the real him. I knew him better than she ever would. Maybe, I said, when's the first date? Her smile was triumphant. Tonight. He's taking me to Rousseau, that French place downtown. The one with the year-long waiting list. The one that was owned by David Tran. The one with private rooms in the back where deals were made and bodies were buried metaphorically, and I suspected, sometimes literally, sounds romantic, I said. Wear the red dress. It's always been your color. She practically floated out of my room. I waited until I heard her door close. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized in my first life, during the desperate weeks before the lake, when I'd been trying to find proof of Marcus's crimes. FBI tip line, a bored voice answered. This call is recorded. I have information about Marcus Chen, I said quietly. The investor? I think he's involved in organized crime, money laundering, drug trafficking. I don't have proof yet, but I thought you should know someone's watching. Can I have your name? No, I said, and hung up. It was a seed. Just a seed. In my first life, the FBI had been close, so close to building their case, when Marcus's lawyers had gotten wind of it, and he disappeared for 6 months, restructuring everything. But now, with a fresh tip, with renewed attention, maybe they'd dig deeper. Watch closer. Maybe they'd be watching when Melissa got in too deep. I deleted the call from my phone's history and went downstairs to make tea. The kitchen smelled like bread and rosemary. Diane was there, arranging flowers in a crystal vase lilies, white and funeral perfect. She looked up when I entered, her smile thin. Melissa told you her news? She asked. She did. And you're all right with it? There was something sharp in her voice. Challenging. Why wouldn't I be? I filled the kettle, set it on the stove. I'm the one who ended it with Marcus. Yes, that was quite a surprise. She snipped a stem with more force than necessary. Such a catch. Most girls would have held on tighter. Most girls hadn't died because of him. I'm not most girls, I said. No. She arranged the lily in the vase, her movements precise. You're very much like your mother. She always did have odd priorities. Chose love over security. Look where that got her. My mother had died of cancer when I was 12. Slow and painful. But she'd been happy, even at the end, because she'd married for love. She'd had my father, and she'd had me, and she'd had her garden. Diane had married for money and status. She'd gotten both, and she'd raised Melissa to want the same. My mother was happy, I said quietly. That's more than a lot of people get. The kettle began to whistle. I poured the water over chamomile leaves and watched them unfurl, releasing their bitter perfume. Happiness doesn't pay bills, Diane said. No, I agreed, but money doesn't guarantee happiness either. Sometimes it just buys you a prettier cage. I took my tea and left her there with her funeral flowers. 2 months passed. I watched from a distance as Melissa and Marcus became the city's new golden couple. They appeared in society pages, her in designer dresses, him in custom suits, both of them smiling like they'd won the lottery. She moved into his penthouse, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the harbor. She posted photos on social media, champagne breakfasts, weekend trips to private islands, jewelry that cost more than cars. She called me sometimes, her voice bright with false concern. How are you doing? Are you okay? I worry about you. I'm fine, I'd say. Really happy for you. And I was, just not in the way she thought, because I saw what she didn't. The way Marcus's smile never reached his eyes in photos. The way his hand gripped her waist just a little too tight. The comments from people who knew cryptic warnings from society, wives who'd seen this pattern before, who knew what Marcus Chen really was. I saw the news articles too. Small ones, buried in the back pages. A warehouse fire at the docks, arson suspected. A shipping container found with false panels. A prosecutor who'd been building a case against organized crime, suddenly requesting a transfer to another state. The FBI was circling. slowly, carefully. And Melissa was at the center of it all, posting selfies in Marcus's penthouse, wearing his gifts, attending his meetings. In my first life, I'd been the one in those photos. I'd been the one the FBI had questioned after Marcus disappeared. They'd frozen my accounts, investigated my father's company, torn apart my life looking for evidence of complicity. But this time, it wasn't my face in the society pages. It was hers. I spent those 2 months building something different, something mine. I took the money I'd saved, the emergency fund I'd hidden before, the inheritance from my mother that Melissa didn't know about, and I rented a small apartment across town. 2 rooms, old hardwood floors, a fire escape that overlooked a community garden. It smelled like coffee from the shop downstairs and rain-wet concrete. It smelled like freedom. I enrolled in horticulture classes at the community college. Spent my days learning about soil pH and propagation and the Latin names of plants. My hands got dirty, calloused, real. I made a friend, June, a 50-year-old Korean woman who ran the community garden and didn't care about society pages or who I used to be engaged to. She taught me how to prune roses and when to harvest tomatoes, and the difference between good dirt and bad dirt. Good dirt feeds life, she said one afternoon, her hands deep in compost. Bad dirt just looks pretty on the surface. You can always tell the difference by what grows. I thought about Marcus's penthouse, all marble and glass and nothing alive. I thought about my little apartment with its window boxes full of herbs. Yeah, I said. You can. At night, I slept without nightmares. No lake water in my lungs. No Melissa's laughter echoing. Just the sound of the city and the smell of basil from my windowsill, and the knowledge that I was building something that couldn't be taken away. The first crack appeared in week 9. Melissa called me at midnight, her voice strange, tight. Can I come over? I sat up in bed, my heart suddenly racing. Now? Please. I just need to talk to someone. To you. She'd never been to my new apartment. I'd kept it separate, secret, mine. But I heard something in her voice. Not fear. Not yet. But the edge of it. Okay, I said. I'll text you the address. She arrived 20 minutes later in a black car with tinted windows. Marcus's car, driven by Marcus's driver. She wore a cream silk blouse and tailored pants and diamond earrings that caught the streetlight. She looked like $1 million. She looked terrified. Nice place, she said, stepping inside. Her eyes swept the small space, the secondhand furniture, the plants crowding every surface. I saw her judgment, her pity, very cozy. It's mine, I said. Tea? Do you have wine? I didn't. I made her chamomile tea instead and watched her pace my small living room like a caged animal. What's wrong? I asked finally. She stopped at the window, looking out at the dark garden below. Have you ever felt like you didn't really know someone? Like the person you thought you loved was just a mask? My chest tightened. What happened? Nothing. Maybe nothing. She turned, and in the dim light I saw the smudge of makeup under her eyes. She'd been crying. Marcus had a meeting tonight, at the penthouse. He told me to stay in the bedroom, not to come out no matter what I heard. So I stayed. But I heard them anyway. Heard what? Men. Talking about shipments and routes and payoffs, about someone who'd talked to the police and needed to be handled. Her hands trembled around the tea mug. And Marcus's voice, so cold, saying, "Make it clean." What does that mean? Make what clean? I knew what it meant. It meant someone was going to die, or disappear, or both. Maybe it was business, I said carefully. Import-export stuff. Customs issues. That's what I thought. That's what I keep telling myself. She sat down hard on my second-hand couch, but then I made the mistake of asking him about it, just casually. Like, how was your meeting? And he looked at me with these eyes, God. His eyes were like ice, and he said, "Don't ever ask me about my work again. Ever. Not angry, just flat, like I was nothing." She looked up at me, And for the first time since she'd stolen Marcus, I saw genuine fear. "I think I made a mistake," she whispered. Yes, she did. But I didn't say that. Instead, I sat down next to her and took her cold hand. "Do you want to leave him?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe. But I can't just walk away. We're engaged now," he proposed last week. "And I've already told everyone. And he's been so good to me, bought me so much. I'd look like an idiot." She was more worried about looking like an idiot than about the man who'd told her never to question him. Some people never learn. "Then don't leave," I said. "But be careful. Trust your instincts. Your instincts told you to leave him," she said. "Were you right?" I met her eyes. "What do you think?" She left an hour later, the black car swallowing her into the night. I watched from my window until the taillights disappeared. Then I made myself more tea and sat in the dark. The trap was tightening. I could feel it. I didn't have to wait long. 3 weeks later, the news broke. Federal raids across the city. Warehouses, offices, private homes. The FBI had executed coordinated warrants in a massive organized crime investigation. Names were released. Arrests made. Marcus Chen was the primary target. I was at the community garden when I heard, my hands deep in soil, transplanting seedlings. June came running from her shed with her phone, her face pale. "Isn't that your sister's fiancé?" I looked at the screen. Marcus in handcuffs, his face blank and cold, FBI agents surrounding him. The headline, "Tech mogul revealed as crime lord multi-state drug and money laundering operation exposed." "Yes," I said quietly. "That's him." My phone started ringing. "Father," then Diane, then Melissa, over and over and over. I didn't answer. I finished transplanting the seedlings, watered them gently, washed my hands in the rain barrel. Then I went home and finally checked my messages. Melissa's voice was frantic. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering?" They came to the penthouse. They arrested Marcus. They took everything, his computers, his files, his phones. They asked me questions, so many questions, about his business, his associates, his money. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know anything. "Please call me back. Please." Father's voice was tight with stress. "We need to talk." The FBI contacted me. They're investigating Marcus's financial dealings, and apparently he'd been trying to move money through the company, through accounts with Melissa's access codes. "Call me immediately." Diane's voice was sharp with panic. "This is your fault. You introduced that man to this family. Now, Melissa's involved in some kind of federal investigation, and it's all over the news. Fix this." I deleted all the messages and made dinner. Pasta with basil from my window box. I ate slowly, tasting every bite. Then I called Father. "Are you safe?" I asked. "Yes, thanks to you." His voice was heavy. "The audit you suggested, it showed everything. Attempted unauthorized access to company accounts, forged transfer requests, all traced back to codes that Melissa had access to. The FBI says Marcus was using her to try to launder money through our business. Is the company implicated?" "No." "Because I caught it early and reported it. Because you warned me." He paused. "How did you know?" "Instinct," I said. "Like mothers." Another pause. Melissa's been crying for hours. She says she didn't know. That Marcus told her he just needed to check some numbers, and she gave him her access codes because she trusted him. Of course she did. Melissa always took the easy path, never questioning what she was handed. "Do you believe her?" I asked. "I don't know what to believe anymore." He sounded old, tired. "The FBI wants to question her again tomorrow. They're investigating whether she was complicit or just negligent. Either way, her name is attached to this. The company's name is attached to this. It's a nightmare." "I'm sorry," I said. And I was. Sorry that he had to go through this. Sorry that Melissa's choices had dragged him into danger. But not sorry enough to regret my decisions. "Diane wants you to come home," Father said. She thinks you should support Melissa through this. No, I said simply. No, I warned her. I told her to be careful. She made her choice. I looked out my window at the garden below, dark and peaceful. I'm not coming home. She's your sister. She's my stepsister. And she's an adult. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. I heard him sigh. You've changed. Yes, I said. I have. We hung up. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The news cycle fed on the scandal for weeks. Marcus Chen's empire unraveled in spectacular fashion. Federal prosecutors laid out a case that spanned years. Drug trafficking, money laundering, extortion, witness tampering. They had wiretaps, financial records, testimony from associates who'd flipped for immunity. They had everything. And Melissa was everywhere in the coverage. Not as a defendant, the FBI ultimately determined she was too stupid to be complicit, just a naive girlfriend who'd been used but as a cautionary tale. Her face appeared in every article, every news segment. The woman who didn't know she was dating a criminal. Heiress caught in crime lord's web. The society pages that had celebrated her now dissected her. Every photo analyzed, every quote scrutinized, every expensive gift revealed to be bought with blood money. Her social media went dark, then deleted entirely. I watched it all from my apartment, from my garden, from the life I was building. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just a quiet, cold certainty that justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just watching someone drown in the consequences they'd chosen. June found me one afternoon sitting on a bench between the tomato plants, my phone in my hand, staring at another headline. Society heiress faces social exile after crime lord scandal. That your sister? She asked, sitting down beside me. Stepsister, you okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I said finally. I am. Good dirt or bad dirt? I looked at her. She was watching me with those sharp, knowing eyes that had seen 70 years of human nature and weren't fooled by pretty surfaces. Bad dirt, I said. Looked pretty. Nothing good grew. She nodded. You can't save bad dirt. You can only walk away and plant somewhere else. That's what I did. Smart girl. She patted my knee and stood. The roses need pruning. You want to help? Yeah, I said, pocketing my phone. I do. The trial was set for 6 months later. Marcus's lawyers tried everything. Motions to dismiss, suppress evidence, change venue. Nothing worked. The FBI's case was airtight. Melissa was never charged, but she was subpoenaed, required to testify about her relationship with Marcus, about the access codes, about what she'd known and when. I heard about it from Father, who called me once a week now. Our conversations were different than before, quieter, more honest. He'd started seeing a therapist. He'd set boundaries with Diane. He was learning, slowly, to tell the difference between love and manipulation. The prosecutor says, Melissa's testimony will be crucial, he told me. She can corroborate the timeline of when Marcus tried to access the company accounts, when he asked for her codes. Will she do it? She doesn't have a choice. It's a subpoena. He paused. She asked if you'd come to court. For moral support. I was replanting lavender in my window boxes. The smell was clean and sharp, cutting through the city air. No, she's struggling. She had to move back home. No one will hire her. Her name is toxic now. She can't go anywhere without people recognizing her from the news. Diane says she barely eats. I pressed the soil down around the lavender roots. Firm. Secure. I'm sorry she's struggling, but I warned her. I told her something was wrong with Marcus. She chose not to listen. You knew, Father said quietly, didn't you? About Marcus? What he really was. I could have lied. Should have lied. But I was tired of lying. Yes. Silence. Long and heavy. How? He finally asked. Does it matter? I suppose not. I heard him breathe out slowly. You let her take him, knowing what he was. I let her make her own choices, I corrected. I offered her a warning. She ignored it. I'm not responsible for the consequences of her greed. That's very cold. Yes, I agreed. It is. We didn't speak for a moment. I watered the lavender, watching the water darken the soil. Your mother would have saved her, Father said finally. Even after everything, she would have tried. My mother was a better person than I am, I said, but she's also dead, and I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep Melissa warm. Not again. Again. I closed my eyes. Figure of speech. But he heard it. The weight behind the words. The history that didn't exist in this timeline, but lived in my bones anyway. I'll tell her you can't make it, he said quietly. Thank you. After we hung up, I sat on my fire escape and looked out at the garden. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and amber. Somewhere across the city, Melissa was probably crying in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of the life she'd tried to steal. I felt nothing. Maybe that made me a monster. Maybe I should have felt something pity, regret, sisterly compassion. But all I felt was the warm breeze on my face, and the smell of lavender, and the knowledge that I was free. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I didn't attend. I followed it through news updates and Father's phone calls. Marcus was found guilty on all counts: racketeering, drug trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. The murder charge was new. They'd found evidence linking him to 5 deaths witnesses who'd disappeared, associates who'd talked to police and ended up in the harbor. I could have been number 6. In my first life, I was number 6. Melissa testified on day 12. Father said she looked small on the witness stand, her voice barely audible as she answered questions about how she'd met Marcus, how he'd charmed her, how she'd given him access to things she shouldn't have, because she'd trusted him. The defense attorney had tried to paint her as complicit, a knowing participant, but she'd cried on the stand, genuine tears, and the jury had seen what the FBI had determined: she was a fool, not a criminal. Marcus had watched her testimony with dead eyes, never flinched, never reacted. When she'd stepped down, she'd looked at him, waiting, maybe, for some sign of the man she'd thought she loved. He'd looked through her like she was glass. She's not doing well, Father said after the verdict. The trial's over, but the damage is done. No one will hire her. Her friends have abandoned her. She can't even go to the grocery store without people whispering. She'll survive, I said. I was at the garden, harvesting tomatoes. They were heavy and ripe, warm from the sun. Will she? Father asked. I'm not sure anymore. She's talking about leaving the city, starting over somewhere no one knows her name. That might be good for her. You really don't care, do you? I thought about the lake, the cold water, the stones in my pockets. Melissa's face above the surface, watching me sink. No, I said, I really don't. Marcus was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for 25. He was 34 years old. He'd be nearly 60 before he breathed free air again. I was watering my window boxes when the news alert came through. I read it once, then put my phone away and finished watering. June called up from the garden below. You coming down? The zucchini's ready. Be right there, I called back. I didn't think about Marcus in his cell. I didn't think about Melissa in her bedroom, probably crying over the man who'd never loved her, who'd used her and discarded her like trash. I thought about zucchini and what I'd make for dinner and whether the basil needed pruning. I thought about my life, my real life, the one I'd built from dirt and seeds and choices that were mine. I went downstairs. 6 months after the sentencing, Melissa left. Father called to tell me. She's moving to Portland. She has a cousin there who offered her a job at a bookstore. A fresh start. Good, I said. She wanted me to give you a message. I waited. She said to tell you that you were right. About Marcus. About everything. And that she's sorry. The word felt hollow, too small for what had happened, for what she'd done in another timeline, in another life. But this Melissa didn't know about the lake, didn't know about the stones and the cold water and my lungs burning. This Melissa had just been greedy and stupid and paid a price that didn't include murder. Okay, I said. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Father? That I forgive her? That we'll be sisters again? I was repotting a fern, my hands gentle around its roots. She made her choices. I made mine. We both have to live with them. She's family. So am I. And she didn't care about that when she was taking what she thought was mine. I positioned the fern in its new pot, added soil around the edges. I hope Portland is good for her. I hope she learns something. But I'm not going to pretend we're close just because she finally understands consequences. Father sighed. When did you get so hard? I'm not hard. I'm just done being soft in ways that hurt me. He didn't have an answer for that. Melissa left on a Tuesday. I didn't say goodbye. A year passed. My life became something I'd never had before. Simple, peaceful, mine. I finished my horticulture certification. Got a job at a botanical garden, working in the greenhouse with orchids and rare ferns. My hands were always dirty now, my nails permanently stained with soil. I loved it. I moved to a bigger apartment, still modest, but with a balcony where I could grow vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, herbs. I ate food I'd grown myself and tasted the difference. Jun became more than a friend. She became family. We had dinner every Sunday, her cooking, my vegetables, stories about our weeks. She told me about her daughter in California, her late husband, the garden she'd built from an empty lot 30 years ago. I told her about my mother, about learning to garden at her side, about how I'd lost that part of myself for a while but found it again. I didn't tell her about the lake, about dying and coming back, about Melissa and Marcus, and the revenge that wasn't revenge, just consequences. Some stories were mine alone. Father visited sometimes. He'd divorced Diane finally, after years of a marriage that had been more transaction than love. He looked younger now, lighter. He'd started painting again, something he'd given up when my mother died. You were right, he told me one afternoon, sitting on my balcony while I pruned roses, about protecting the company, about the audit. If I hadn't listened to you, I'd have lost everything. You listen to yourself? I said. I just reminded you to trust your instincts. Your mother used to say that. Trust your instincts. He smiled, sad and soft. You're very like her. I hope so. We sat in comfortable silence, the city humming below us, the roses releasing their perfume into the warm air. Do you ever wonder about Melissa? He asked. How she's doing? No, I said honestly. I do. Sometimes. He turned his coffee mug in his hands. Diane says she's doing better. Working at the bookstore, seeing a therapist, trying to rebuild. Good. She asks about you, if you're happy. I looked at my balcony garden, at the tomatoes ripening in the sun, at the herbs spilling from their pots in wild abundance. I thought about my job, my apartment, my life that no one could take because I'd built it with my own hands. Yes, I said. I'm happy. And I was. Not the giddy, champagne happiness I'd felt with Marcus in my first life that had been fool's gold, pretty and worthless. This was something deeper, steadier, real. This was the happiness of good dirt. Father left as the sun was setting. I stayed on the balcony, watching the light fade, the city lights blink on one by one. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, it's Melissa. I got your number from Dad. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. You tried to warn me and I didn't listen. I was jealous and greedy and stupid. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what you tried to tell me about Marcus, about being careful, About not everything that glitters being gold. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. I read it twice. Then I looked out at my garden, at the life I'd grown from nothing. I could respond, could be gracious, could say something about moving forward or lessons learned or family bonds. But that would be a lie. The truth was simpler, colder, more honest. I deleted the message and put my phone away. Some people get second chances. I got mine when I woke up 3 years in the past, with death still cold in my lungs. Melissa got hers when the FBI decided she was too naive to prosecute, when she walked away from Marcus's trial with nothing worse than a ruined reputation. We'd both made our choices with those second chances. I chose to build something real. She chose to steal something shiny. We both got exactly what we deserved. I went inside and made dinner. Pasta with tomatoes from my balcony, basil I'd grown from seed, garlic I'd learned to braid from Jun. I ate slowly, tasting every bite, grateful for every moment of this simple, honest life. Outside, the city hummed. Somewhere, Marcus sat in a cell, counting the years until he'd be old and broken. Somewhere, Melissa shelved books and tried to forget the woman she'd been. And here, in my small apartment that smelled like basil and good dirt, I lived, not in their shadow, not in their story, just in mine.